Hello and welcome to Full Time Score with your host TC. Yeah, man, it's episode number 10. Welcome to it as well. Thank you for watching. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notifications buttons so that you're notified when we release our videos, usually either Monday or a Tuesday like today, which is a Tuesday. All right, so we're gonna do a couple of things today. In fact, three hot topics, focusing on the big three teams in South African football. That's Mamelodi Sundowns, who played in the CAF Champions League quarterfinal, and then of course we're gonna also talk about Orlando Pirates, who played in the CAF Confederations Cup quarterfinal against Simba in Tanzania. Then we're gonna do a little bit of Kaizer Chiefs, who lost this weekend, and there was some. I don't want to say protest. I really don't want to say protest, but there were some fans who were unhappy, a bit slightly unhappy with management and certain decisions. They actually want the coach to go. So we're going to discuss all of that within the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. Once again, please bear with us as well. We try to simplify the game of football in South African context, try to put it as simple as possible for the most basic of fan to actually understand. With all that said, let's get it going, man. All right, let's start off with the quarterfinal of the CAF Champions League, which took place in Angola over the past weekend, which is Mamelodi Sundowns up against Petro de Luanda. All right, match ended up 2-1, Petro de Luanda winning, surprising a lot of people because I think majority of the people who follow South African football thought Sundowns might cruise it. I felt a couple of weeks ago when the draw was made that this was a favorable draw for Sundowns. Now, the game's not over, obviously, that was the first leg, but I thought this is a favorable draw for Sundowns. It's a team in the Southern African region, a team they know, a team, they could easily deal with because they play a similar style of football to them, unlike the more North African teams who play a more direct style, because Sundowns have a history of struggling with a direct style when they played Al Ahly in the past. This season, of course, they beat them twice, but in the past, Sundowns have struggled with the more direct technical style that the North African teams play. Wydad Casablanca, Sundowns have heavily struggled with them, and I felt this is a good chance to play a team, who play a very similar style. Now, Saturday evening, I think around about 6 o'clock, I was watching the game with my nephew there over the Easter weekend, and first 10 minutes, Lalake gets a free kick, he scores it. I'm thinking, all right, business as usual, I'm sure. When you think about how Sundowns have been playing lately, 5 games, 22 goals scored, Peter Shalili, firing all sorts of goals from all sorts of angles. They score first and thinking business as usual, but somehow Petro de Luanda came back and made it 1-1. And from then on, it was the Petro de Luanda show. Absolutely dominated. For the first time in a while, I saw Andile Jali not dominate the midfield, regardless of who his partner was. Jali was not in the game. Sundowns were not in the game. They seemed very lethargic. They seemed tired. It's like the pitch was heavy. I heard someone mention, one of the commentators mentioned the humidity, and I assumed it took me back to a couple of years back when we played a cricket tournament in Durban, and I remember struggling to breathe and run because I was just not used to the humidity down in the KZN. I took me back to that, and I assume that it's the same thing. I assume it's the same thing with Sundowns, where it seemed as if they were really, really struggling to run. The press was slow. They normally play a slow passing game, but it was slower than usual because they have to be patient on the ball because teams tend to sit deep. It just didn't look good. And when Petro de Luanda got the second goal, it was a well-deserved goal. I thought the keeper could have pushed it. That's Dennis Oyango, but he couldn't, I guess because it was a close-range shot. Finishes it off, makes it 2-1, and Petro de Luanda second half come back. They sit deep for like the first 20-25 minutes just to say to Sundowns, let's see if we can score. Sundowns, great save by Wellington, the goalkeeper, from Shalulile's header from a free kick. There was a lot of incidences where Sundowns could have scored. Even in the first half, Chambers on had rounded the keeper, then he hit the post. He could have made it 2-2. But it was a very, very tough game, and it was an off-color Sundowns performance. The only advantage of that whole performance is, and it's to quote what Hulani Mukwena said while he was quoting a Jurgen Klopp quote saying, that's the best match to lose. And for Sundowns, that was the best match to lose because it was away, they've got an away goal, and they're coming back home. So they've got a second leg, they've got another chance this weekend to actually wrap up the game. If they win 1-0, they win the match, and then they go to the semi-final. It's not over. equally, they know that was not their best performance, and they probably got a hint of what's the Petro are gonna do, and that's probably defend when they come back to South Africa. So it's one of those situations where you feel that Sundowns did not play well, but I don't think they're completely out of it. But the performance was very disappointing from a perspective of what we are so used to seeing from Sundowns every week. And again, certain individuals didn't step up as normal. I did mention Jali and Zwane. Shalili, unfortunately, Shalili, he needs supply. He can't do it all by himself. Defensively, I felt not Dennis, but Brian Oyango was very good. I was surprised at that selection. I felt I'm one person who feels, especially when it comes to your goalkeeper in the back line, you don't change that often, especially if you're in a winning position. I felt putting in my homeboy Lubusa, I wasn't sure what that was about. I would have stuck if I was the coaching. I would have stuck with not Matthew, but rather Rushen Duruk and Brian Onyango. I would have stuck both of them in there. I felt Duruk plays well with the ball at his feet. He's a very good defender. I think probably the best defender in the country right now. Brian Oyango next to him has vastly improved as the season's gone on because Libus had a bit of a long mid-term injury. So Brian Oyango has improved. And in games like this, in the African continent, you do need a big stability unit of a defender. So Brian Oyango played well, by the way. I felt he just needed a different partner. That's Matthew Duruk, because that's been the partnership that's been winning all the matches. I was surprised that they went for Lubusa and Oyango. Not to say Lubusa was bad, but I just feel changing combinations unnecessarily sometimes does play into it. Very disappointed with Tebo Mokoena. I think maybe Sundowns need to start using him from the bench a bit and playing him in Pack Philly. Hasn't found his feet yet, but that can happen. He's moved with a big money move, all the attention on him, all the stars around him. It happens to most players who move to Sundowns anyway. So he just needs a bit of time to really grasp it. But we all know what a great footballer he was. Didn't have a good game at all. Not just him. Jali didn't have a good game at all. Tapelo Morena didn't have a good game at all. Sereno was okay. Zwane was okay. Yeah, it wasn't really a good Sundowns performance. Now, someone mentioned it post-match that, sometimes Sundowns, they're not challenged in the PSL. So when they meet a team that can hit them bang, 1-2 and it's 2-1, they struggle to come back. And it's clear, it's evident, that in the PSL, they're not necessarily challenged. They win every game easily. They probably win the game before the game starts. And that kind of creates a certain level of complacency. I'm not saying they are complacent, and definitely not suggesting that, but it does create that. And again, they don't benefit from that because they're not consistently challenged. You look at teams that are consistently challenged domestically. When they travel to another place, they know how to deal with adversity. Sundowns could not deal with that adversity in that 90 minutes. Now, they can still deal with it Saturday because they've got another shot and at home in their own home conditions, and they've got the advantage of one away goal. So if they win 1-0, they go through. But at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, Sundowns should have drawn the match at the very least. On merit, they should have matched up, and they failed to match up. It was a disappointing performance. On the referee, I felt all three decisions that the referee is being questioned for were right. Number one, the penalty that people are accusing him of missing when Brian Oyango apparently had handball. I watched the incident. Brian Oyango's hands were on his body. Usually referees don't give that anymore. Unless if it was there, which is away from the body, and that's called an unnatural position by according to the football rules, then that's a penalty. But it was here. That can't be a penalty. The other goal that Petro Dulunda scored, now, it was a square pass. That dude who scored the goal from that square pass was onside. But the guy was offside who got the ball, looked up and passed it across. So that was a correct decision for me. No need for VAR that I could have called that. And I'm not a referee. The last one was the Sundowns goal. Great goal by Neomayem, one of the players that have really surprised me, signed by Sundowns, thinking, what is this all about? And he's really been excellent. I think he's probably going to carry Sundowns for many seasons once the likes of Zwane have gone. He scored a great goal, but then it got reversed. Referee had to go to the VAR screen, have a look, and he picked up that, hey, look, there was a foul. I think it was Mvala who fouled a Petro Dulunda player in the midfield, in the lead up to the goal, because he fouled him on the ball. I think 3 passes later, it goes into Neomayema's feet, he scores it. For me, that's a foul. The first thing. And yeah, it was a bit behind, yes, it was a bit far. But those are the rules of the game. We said we want VAR as fans. We got VAR. Deal with it. We don't like it. Deal with it. I'm just glad the one thing I picked up was the ref actually went to the screen and made the decision himself. Right? It was not nice because Sundowns scored. You're thinking, 2-2, at least now there's no way. Downs are back in the game. They're probably going to go all the way. But no, it wasn't like that, unfortunately. And I thought it was the right decision. There's so many narratives when Sundowns lose a match in South African football. Like, it's because they bought all the competition. I'll deal with those in future videos. But people will say, it's because they buy all the competition in the country. They do this. They accuse them all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, Sundowns' loss was a marital loss. They deserve to lose their match. They didn't deserve to win. And they know it. We'll see on Saturday how that goes as well. The next game, Sunday evening, same time, literally 24 hours later, we had a game between Orlando Pirates and Simba in Tanzania. Simba, the big team in Tanzania there as well. Simba winning 1-0. I felt, I've been saying this, that Orlando Pirates, when I watch Orlando Pirates, it's a painful watch. It's a sight for sore eyes. And my reasoning for that is that you can clearly see that that is not a well-coached team. And you don't need to be a coach. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or whatever. It's not a very well-coached team. First of all, it does not look like there's a plan for opponents, number one. Number two, some of the selections don't make any sense. Most of the time, the substitutions make no sense at all. For example, the substitution, they took out Ndlovu and they brought on Abel Mabaso. You take off an attacking player, you bring on a defensive midfielder while you're chasing a game. Maybe it was to release another midfielder and say, you go forward. I don't understand it. Lodge starts on the bench. To this day, it defeats me. What does Kwame Pepra bring to that team? What the hell is going on with the Kabatino Mahango situation? Why can't the club and the players sort themselves out? It's either the club let the player go, release him and move him on, or they sort it out and keep him there and actually make him play because he's one of their best players when he's happy and he's playing consistently at that. There's just too many questions around the Orlando Pirates for me, and that's beyond one football match. That's just literally the whole club and its entirety. My biggest issue with Pirates has been a lack of philosophy for years now. Zinba, no philosophy. We've got two head assistant coaches or two assistant coaches, whatever they're called. No philosophy. You don't see any type of how are they going to play. Other clubs have philosophies, but those philosophies don't suit the players they have. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. Other clubs have strong philosophies like Sundowns, a winning philosophy, and a philosophy that you can see these guys are going to play the ball, they're going to pass it. They call it Shushan and Piano. They pass it about, they try to create space using the ball. When off the ball, they press. Orlando Pirates don't do any of that. In that game in itself, it was a disastrous watch. I'm not sure what we were watching. No direction, no philosophy. Pirates didn't look like they were going to score or create a goal scoring chance. If they were going to score, it was going to be a bump goal. Like literally, it's going to be a fluke, a corner, a penalty, or just a little situation, quick situation. No impetus on the game. Yes, I know it's an away game. It's very difficult in Tanzania. The coach came out and complained about the way they were treated before the match and probably during the match. etc. That's okay. But the fact that they don't impose themselves on any football match, including that one, says to me that they're just not good enough for this level. Orlando Pirates need to make harsh decisions as management and change the coaching, get someone in who's going to grab this thing and take it forward. Now, there were also more incidences in the game. One incident, actually, that I could really speak of, which was the penalty by Happy Jele. I'm not sure what was going on there. First of all, Jele is a very experienced player. You expect a guy like Jele, honestly, one of the most experienced players in the league, in South African football right now playing, to know that you don't slide in the box. Sliding in the box is asking for trouble. Yeah, Morrison was a bit smart. He saw him smile and he ran into it and knew that I'm just going to fall. The ref will do the rest. And really, the ref did the rest. The ref gave the penalty. Now, was it a penalty or not? It's 50-50 for me. I feel the ref should have gone to VAR and checked it out again and made a proper conclusive decision. But he decided not to. Apparently VAR didn't work. That's what I heard post-match. I don't know, but he should have gone for me. And for me, again, I blame Jele more than the coach, the ref. I think he shouldn't have slid. He should have just tried to shield him off. You don't slide in the box. You stay on your feet in the box as long as you can. Unless you're really going to win the ball. But for a 50-50 ball, I would never advise anyone to slide, and that's where the mistake came for me. Other than that, there was really nothing to really talk about. Pirates were poor. Simba not as strong as we expected them to be. They're not the strong Simba of the past. We saw that last year when Chiefs dealt with them easily, and a very poor Chiefs side at that dealt with them easily. And that's not to compare, but it's still the same Simba side. That's why they're in the Cap Confed Cup this season, because they're not very strong anymore. But Pirates failed to deal with them, and that's more a reflection of how bad Orlando Pirates are. Orlando Pirates are very bad. It's just that they've been papering over the cracks. I'm not surprised that they're in this position. Maybe they'll win it at home and they'll go on, perhaps. But I don't think they'll win the tournament. I don't think they'll go very far, especially when they play a better team, more organized, more structured team. Even if it's an unknown team that we don't even know, I don't think they'll go far. Unlike Sundowns, who I think they were just not on form. But Orlando Pirates just don't have the structure and the foundation to actually win football matches and win football tournaments. That's just my piece on Orlando Pirates. Very disappointing. Last one on Orlando Pirates, I heard the coach come out and complain about the treatment he received. First of all, it's very naive because, coaches have been in African football for long. You can look at the 3 coaches at Sundowns. You can look at maybe last season when Kevin Hunt and Arthur Zwane and Dylan Shepherd were taking Chiefs all the way to the CAF Champions League. There were hardly any other complaints about all the treatment and stuff. You deal with it. It's part of African football. It's part of it. And I thought Mandla Ngulazi's explosive post-match conference was just another way to people off the cracks to say, yeah, we got this. I thought it was just a poor excuse. He's right, definitely. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I just thought that you know this by now. When you go to African countries, especially Tanzania, the North African countries, you're going to get that type of treatment. There's no use complaining about it. Nothing's ever been done. Just move on and play the game. Sundowns go every season there in these places, and they go. Chiefs went to those places last season, and they went all the way to the final. You never heard them complain about treatment. Why is now all of a sudden an issue? Again, I'm going back. It's very disappointing, extremely disappointing that when our players and our teams and our teams, players and clubs go into those regions in Africa, certain regions in Africa, not all, they get this treatment. But when these dudes come back here, our clubs come and give them facilities to use. I think it goes back to that point for me. I'm not trying to create anything. I'm literally just pointing out the fact that it shows me that the whole facilities story was just a bunch of nonsense, and it should not happen. I disagreed with it because of the very same reason, by saying that when our clubs go there, they don't get the nice treatment. They don't get the best stadiums, the best facilities. They're given the worst, and they're mistreated and intimidated, and they're pushed around, and they are whatever. And then when they come here, we're nice hosts. I'm a lover of the spirit of Ubuntu. It makes us South Africans extremely unique. But sometimes particularly in sport, I feel like you gotta give as much as you take. That's disappointing that some clubs don't believe in that because they think we must be Ubuntu and it's sportsmanship. Get out of here with that for me, man. You have to give as much as you receive. And I think CAF need to also do something about this. But whining about it, not gonna help. Last but not least, Saturday night, around about 9:30, game ends at FNB Stadium between Supersport United and Kaizer Chiefs. Fans of Kaizer Chiefs stay over after the match and start shouting, Baxter must go, Baxter must go, Baxter must go, Baxter must go. And it's been coming. It's been building up tangibly. First of all, before that game, right, this was the first time fans have been allowed back into the stadium in 2 years because of the whole COVID situation. Fans were not allowed in the stadium for a long time. Now they're allowed back, which is great. But you could sense it on social media. A lot of fans have been hinting that, you know what, if we get a chance to go to stadiums, we're going to make our voices known. Now, I'm glad, from what I know, there was no real sense of element of violence, which is good because at the end of the day, football is just a game. And the people who play the game, people who coach the game, the people who run the game are exactly that. They are people, men and women of flesh and bones like you and myself. So to bring violence into sport for me is a no-no. But to also make your voice known as fans who pay to be at the stadium, who pay to watch football matches on TV, to pay to stream football matches on their phones and laptops or whatever streaming facilities you use, you have a right to voice your anger, you voice your frustration. So when someone comes and says to me, nah, you're a fan, you must support, I get pissed off because the reality is you don't just go out and say, hey, you must support. No way, I pay DSTV every month. And I pay for my streaming services in terms of my Wi-Fi and all these things so that I can have access to watch these football matches. And when I have access, I go to the stadium and the prices have been increased. Prices are now 70 Rand in the stadium. I pay my hard-earned money to earn this. So if I'm dissatisfied at what I'm watching from a club I support, the club whose merchandise I buy, who I watch weekly or daily or whatever, I have a right to complain, and those Chiefs fans have a right to complain if they are not happy. The question is management listening? Clearly, Baxter's not listening, because Baxter's comments were extremely disappointing and extremely ridiculous when he said he's the only coach to bring success in 20 years. Ted Dimitru, Moshin Ertugal, those dudes don't exist anymore. Come on, Stuart, you're better than that. Very ignorant and very arrogant from Mr. Baxter to say he's the only coach to bring success to Kaizer Chiefs in 20 years. Really? Nah, man. And it goes to show how out of touch with reality Stuart Baxter is. How out of touch in reality Kaizer Chiefs management is. Now, I want to break a couple of things up. From where I'm sitting, and that's just a neutral football fan, I take out my phone, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, whatever, and I'm listening, reading, watching, in some cases on other YouTube channels, what Kaizer Chiefs fans are complaining about. Number one thing Kaizer Chiefs fans are complaining about is the philosophy. It's a boring philosophy. I said this in a previous video. I think the video where I did the Kaizer Chiefs Orlando Pirates game, where I said this is the best you'll see of Chiefs when they play against a team that's stupid and they will play into their heads. But against the weaker team, they won't do anything. That's number one. Philosophy. It's not the right philosophy. No one enjoys that philosophy. It's old. Number two, team selection. You're persisting with players that are off form. In some cases, players that just don't have a space in South African football or in Kaizer Chiefs anymore. And one of those players happens to be Nasamia Nokovic. For me, Nanges very disappointed me, And the defensive structure that you're setting up, 3 central defenders, and you've got 2 wing backs, you've got a left back playing, a right back playing as a left back, you've got a central midfielder playing as a right wing back. Sometimes you've got a central defender called Njabulo Ngobo playing in the middle in terms of as a defensive midfielder. Team selection and where you put your players are wrong. And that's on the coach. Philosophy, team selection on the coach. Last but not least, what I see the players, the Kaizer Chiefs supporters are crying most about, the lack of young players. Kaizer Chiefs are looking at these young players. They've got Bruce Vuma, a young goalkeeper for a goalkeeper. He's quite young actually. They've got another one, Ngosingi Pile Ngobo, aka Mshini, Happy Mashiani. Then they've got Sabelo Khatebe, KG Sukhota. All those players not playing consistently. And they have 4, 5, 6 young players who look like the future could be very bright if they are coached properly, under proper philosophy, and given a chance. Whenever those kids have been given a chance, especially Ngobo and Khatebe, even Vuma last season when the club went to the CAF Champions League final, they shone for the club. They shone. But all of a sudden, they're no longer in the picture. Why? Again, it's on the coach. Hence, the supporters are saying Baxter must go. Now, I'm not a person, I don't open this channel to bash on players or coaches and say people must go, this person must go. I don't want to do that. But it's quite clear that Kaizer Chiefs management is out of touch with reality. They actually think Stuart Baxter is the guy that's going to get them to the level where they can find themselves back challenging Mamelodi Sundowns consistently, and not just challenging, but actually winning trophies, as is the tradition of Kaizer Chiefs. Because if you look at Kaizer Chiefs, particularly in the PSL era, and the era from 1996 till today, they were never really a league-winning team, but they were a cup-winning team. They always won at least 1 or 2 cups per season. They haven't done that in a long time. I get it. It's not Stuart Baxter's fault. But I think it's more management, because Baxter just came back now. But bringing Baxter back to think that this is going to be instant success was a stupid idea. You need to build a foundation and a structure to win. Go all over the world. Look at how Man City have built the structure around Pep Guardiola, who's, in my opinion, the greatest football manager of all time. In order to win, you can go back many years ago. Look at the structure Sir Alex Ferguson built at Man United to make Man United the club that we know today. They're no longer the same club, of course, but look how he built that to have all that success over that long period of time. You can come back local. Take your watch 10 years back, where were Mamelodi Sundowns when Petro Msimani walked into the doors at Glotcop? Where are they now? What have they gotten right to get to where they are now? Once you see all of that, then maybe you can use your own devices to say, right, let's get a young coach. Let's give him a backing and give him years to build us the structure. You cannot win in football without a structure, and there's no quick fixes in football. And I believe the Kaizer Chiefs management are so deluded in their thinking that they don't seem to understand that. I question one last thing, and this is not just for Kaizer Chiefs, and I think also Pirates can apply, and not just them, all the teams in the PSL, probably with the exception of Mamelodi, Sundowns, and Supersport United, and yeah, just about there. When we hire coaches and when we bring players, let's start with coaches. Do we really fully assess and profile a coach on what he is, who he is, what he brings to the team, and do we really compare what we want as a team, as a club, as a board, as a management, as a technical team, to what we want and what he brings to the team? I'll give you an example. Man United are on the verge of hiring Erik ten Hag from Ajax Amsterdam. Now, it's been a rigorous process for them to find a coach. They've had Mauricio Pochettino, they've had Erik ten Hag. There's been a lot of names being thrown around. I think Luis Enrique's name was thrown there as well. Julian Lopetegui has also thrown in there. They've gone through a few coaches' names. But what they did was they profiled each person. The board laid down what they want. Whether we agree with what the board wants or not, that's irrespective. But the board lays down what they want. We want this. This is how we want to see the club. This is the vision we have. And then the coach, if he's in an interview process, he speaks his piece to say, no, this is how I do things. This is what I do. This is what I'm thinking. I can do that. I can do this. And this is what I want. And if those things coincide, then we can say we're hiring you because we think you can fit the vision of our club. South African football clubs don't do that. They don't profile coaches. Board management doesn't set up objectives and say, here's what we need from you. The coach reads it and say, this is how I think I can do this and I can get there. They hire coaches at random and then hope for, hey man, this dude is from England or Europe or wherever. He's going to come in and he's going to do the job. It doesn't work like that anymore. This is not 1984. This is 2022. Profile. You have everything. You have access. You have Wi-Fi, you have internet. You're a rich football club in some cases. Go to Europe if you need the coach. Watch him. Profile. Ask questions in wherever he worked. How was he around? What is his playing philosophy? What did he really do? Is he a coach who believes in young players? Because we have a huge group of young players who want to give a chance. Is he going to give them a chance? These players believe in attacking football. Is he going to play attacking football? But because we don't do that as South African teams, we just hire because we see a name. Yeah, Samir Khamovic. Sounds European. Let him come here. Stuart Baxter. European name. Come here. It doesn't work. And that's when you end up with coaches with 33% win rates in Europe, like Joseph Zimbabwe coaching Orlando Pirates, a top club in South African football. That's how you end up with Stuart Baxter, a coach who does not believe, a coach who cannot coach creativity, who does not believe in creating and attacking football, who does not believe in young players coaching a top club like Kaizer Chiefs, and we're expecting people like that to improve our football. When Coach Bruce comes out and says, there's no football here, we're like, Bruce is just chowing our mind. Well, there isn't football because we as South Africans don't know what we're doing. Starting there, we keep hiring people who are just useless, in my opinion. With all of that said, it's been a pleasure to bring you this week's episode. It's episode 10. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be back again next week with the latest football news. It's your boy, TC Ramkhwasa.